Peace, 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 peace. Peace and blessings. Peace and love to all the American Aborigines, American Indians, North, East, South, Central, and conjoining islands. This is your brother Aboriginal Power. Today we have a special guest coming today to speak. I will be interviewing the brother Ub-Newz. So make sure y'all hit that like button. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button, notification bell, and let's get right into some of the intro. So make sure you hit that like button, you guys. Let's go.
Infamous Trey Ali.
I said paper on paper on paper. Ain't no genocide, we was killed on paper. Buried us alive in the proudest of the paper. They know who we are, so they hate us cause they hate us. I said paper on paper on paper. Ain't no genocide, we was killed on paper. Buried us alive in the proudest of the paper. They know who we are, so they hate us cause they hate us. I said gotta never die, never left us. Even though they took you home, you still behind you like a catcher. Life is like a doctor, everybody wants their checkup. Money, even preach charge for a confession. See, ain't nobody focused on the bullshit that they told us. Always trying to pin you sick when ain't nobody came before us. We the best part of waking up before the folks. That's why they want you back against the wall like a poster. Indoctrination being sold as education. Most of history they taught you came from some imagination. Rules never true, fuck the whole compilation. Fuck Walter Becker, fuck Alex Haley. America is Egypt, Israel, Queen Khalifa. Babylon used to devil by empire, take my fever. Niggas think I'm lying cause they sleep. But bitch, I ain't no fool shopping my toes every season. I said paper on paper on paper. Ain't no genocide, we was killed on paper. Buried us alive in the proudest of the paper. They know who we are, so they hate us cause they hate us. I said paper on paper on paper. Ain't no genocide, we was killed on paper. Buried us alive in the proudest of the paper. They know who we are, so they hate us cause they hate us. Guess I gotta start bad rapper, tell these niggas how it happened. Control is the goal, now you spice like William Shatner. Technology's economy is over on your balance, like your head is couple ways, like yourself up in your habits. Fears how they take it, they explain it for being active and questioning all the requisites made to prevent disasters. We were not the church, we were talking to the pastor, got the online title that's a valid for the masses. They never love the classics, so fight up our originals. Classify your favorite rhymes the way they did the Seminoles. I'm so black pride that my inside's purple. If the brother never died, they probably never alert you. You need to venture out and stop sticking with us. So black pride that my inside's purple. I'm moving out perfume, the streets ain't gold. My summer so cold, we left the fog on froze. I said paper on paper on paper. Ain't no genocide, we was killed on paper. Buried us alive in the proudest of the paper. They know who we are, so they hate us cause they hate us. I said paper on paper on paper. Ain't no genocide, we was killed on paper. Buried us alive in the proudest of the paper. They know who we are, so they hate us cause they hate us. I said paper on paper on paper. Ain't no genocide, we was killed on paper. Buried us alive in the proudest of the paper. They know who we are, so they hate us cause they hate us. I said paper on paper on paper. Ain't no genocide, we was killed on paper. Buried us alive in the proudest of the paper. They know who we are, so they hate us cause they hate us. Snap that bitch up, man.
Hey, we got 35 people in here. Make sure you hit the like button. Drop some fire emojis in the chat if you can hear me loud and clear. We have the brother Ub-Newz in the building, you guys. Drop some fire emojis. Let's get it.
It ain't legalized. Realize. Freedom ain't free, it ain't legalized. Realize. Freedom ain't free, it ain't legalized. Realize. Yeah. Slavery was a long time ago. How? Same motherfuckers still here right now. Colonized on our land, they ahead of us. Changed our name so much, they scared of us. Children of the sun, y'all don't compare to us. Pale-faced people, this ain't y'all area. Talking about America, pale-faced people, this ain't y'all area. Even up the playing field, bitch, I'm darn. How you a victim, bitch, you a Karen. Cognitive dissonance, you don't need sperm. You got white privilege, so you don't need sperm. Looking at my homeland, man, I can't believe her. Colonized came here, they ain't never leave her. Indians ain't die off cause we here. You ain't gotta lie, just say you won't be here. How you American but not indigenous? 400 years still ain't get rid of us. All Europeans, naturalized citizens. Made all the Indians niggas on the census. 1492, we was on the fences. Civil rights movement, we was so defensive. Black Wall Street, whites got so offended. Common law rights gave us amendments. Thank God don't speak truth, that's alright. First slave 1619 was all white. 1200 wasn't no continent, all white. Europe named after a black woman, alright. Grafted, it come from us, do your research. Go within, quit listening to the teacher. And the new kid got voice coming out the speaker. Cut our trees down and made us weaker. Really they foreign or the shit gets deeper. Whites don't know where whites come from either. I'm Aboriginal, we come from the ether. Ruling over us in our land, that's evil. Being colonized right now, black people. Prisoner of the war, that's why it ain't equal. Wake up everybody, don't be no sheeple. Freedom ain't free, really freedom is illegal. And we can't get mad at this. Whites act like we can't see their advantages. Privileges real, they working in management. Low down dirty, but they calling us savage. They want you to think they above us. All white people are part-time judges. I ain't no racist, but I ain't no sucker. I ain't no African, but they my brothers. Then lied to, I got built up anger. You built everything, still waiting on the savior. Don't call yourself black, please do me that favor. Black tourmaline will protect you from a hater. Listening to your oppressors is dangerous. Gave us a Bible and stole our nation. Said we couldn't read what we didn't know the language. Kept us on paper because we didn't see the danger. American Indian, keep the religion. Skin copper color look just like a penny. Wanted our land and you called us stingy. Ain't no Democrats there together, pay attention. We got ancestors, but the papers is missing. Kings and queens.
Make sure y'all share the live stream.
Just like Simba.
Appreciate you guys.
We don't want that in us. George Washington is the ninth president. Look it up. United States only 10 square blocks. Look it up. White people really the minorities. Look it up. Courtrooms don't got authorities. Look it up. You want me? Say stop governing me. Gave me a straw man. It's really not me. Why you don't keep it 100 with me? Why Trayvon Killer still walking around free? Made this song for the truth, don't hate it. History was told in reverse, I've stated. Still still oppressed, somebody gotta say it. I'm taking you out of school, that's the reason I made it. History is his story. History is his story. History is his story. History is his story. History is his story.
Get it, y'all. We got one more intro song. Make sure y'all hit that like button.
History is his story.
Share this around on all your social media outlets. It's your brother Aboriginal Power. We have the brother Ub-Newz in the building. Let's get it, you guys. We're gonna end it right here with this one. You know we got some of the best Aboriginal content when it comes to music, man. Some of the fire artists in the game.
Once again, it's time.
Period. Y'all go support them.
Yeah.
Links in the description.
It's King Isaiah, I'm demanding respect. I see everybody ballin' till it's time to connect. I see everybody killers till you hand them a tech or cops. Read them they rights, nightsticks to they neck. Too many chasing the check instead of checking priorities. Flexing heavy on the ground, but you still a minority. Fucking whips, your chains, or anything that came after. Misleading black people, you a fucking slave master. This is Genesis, I'm flipping the page backwards. Listen to intuition, we ain't got the same pastors. Me, I follow no man, I can't be programmed. This soul food set the mood like a fucking slow jam. It's time to eat up. I'm 10 toes down, who gon' defeat us? I'm living gold, Aboriginal, check my features. Who gon' speak up? I turn up and blow speakers. My own teacher, I grew up with no leaders. Can't trust people, cause they ain't telling the whole truth. Get directions to heaven, but you live in the hell too. That's how I feel, keeping it real. Love it or hate it, either way they trying to crucify me like the savior. Put thorns in my crown, they knowing that I'm a king. We been crossed too many times, whipped and hung from trees. I am my ancestors from the past that done bled, and now we here resurrected, bitch, I'm back from the dead, immortal. They can't kill me, I'm forever on the rise. They despise my genetics, it's something special about my kind. A descendant of the ones in the tombs. Brown babies coming from wombs, in tune with the sun and the moon, you feel me? If it ain't clear, it's time to switch optics. Cause ignorance got us moving in fear, and that bring them big profits. But I'm a prophet, so I kick knowledge. Cause the shit that you hearing on the radio got us misguided. They got our goddesses hating they real bodies, and the gods getting high off lean and pill popping. Bodies are still dropping. Is you paying attention? I guess not. You still paying to listen. I move different in my true image. Just too many projecting hate. Who gon' lift the whole world up and tell them they great? Who gon' tell everybody getting money, but who's spreading the bait? So we can buy back the block, start to better this place. Cause our skin tones is dark, it's divine mastery. The hair grown from my dome defies gravity, yeah. The real rulers of earth rebirth humanity. Facts. The queen's high supreme, call her your majesty. Facts. You better battle me, listen, don't be a casualty. Fuck a colonizer, we guardians of the galaxy. They super late, bitch, I move truth, fuck moving weight. Earth is our true estate, then let our lights illuminate and prosper. I promise I'm passionate with my power. I'm writing all my wrongs and balancing every chakra. Who gon' stop? I'm a dead to try. The reason you so scared to fly is cause you scared to die. But I exist on dimensions beyond this plane. You thinking it's all a game. When you open up your eyes, your energy start to change. We still traumatized and healing from all the pain. It's good versus evil, our enemies all the same. So I'm 10 toes down with my feet in the dirt. And when I leave Earth, you still hear me speaking this verse. This music is all my scriptures I've been keeping since birth. When I spoke them into existence, I was seeing my worth. My purpose is my perspective. I'm serving a higher message. A piece of the Most High is written in my genetics. I speak for my soul tribe. We shed a divine essence, releasing the soul ties to whatever we find negative light. Instead of bashing out women, we heal with them. Instead of running from problems, we deal with them. And instead of killing our brothers, we build with them. So, fuck the illusions, we seeing the real picture. We here. It's more spiritual than physical, nigga. If you ain't trying to bring change, you invincible, nigga, for real. My message lives, it's invincible, nigga. And fuck being rich if you ain't got no principles, nigga. Prayer.
Hey, let me say something real quick. All these years we've been calling each other niggas and they think we tripping. Have our own kind looking at us with resentment. But listen, you see, we not slaves, but we are the descendants. But this is a new age, so it's time to transition. Nigga means noble individual, grace and godly ambition. Cause we always make gold out of the labels that they give us. Cause this is our land, we were the first that ever existed. So respect your temple, honor your pigment. From the motherland to the other lands, we are
indigenous.
All right, that was the brother King Azir. Shout out to my brother King Azir. That was a fire one. I ain't gonna hold you guys too longer, man. We got the brother Ub-Newz in the building. Let's bring him on. Make sure y'all drop the fire emojis. Y'all know how we do it traditional over here. Flood the chat out with fire emojis. Shout out to everybody in the chat. We got the brother Ub-Newz on. Peace, brother. How you feeling?
Shalom. I'm good. How are you?
Man, it's beautiful. It's a blessing to have you on the platform. Been watching your work for some time now. A couple of the viewers had definitely sent requests to watch some of your recent stuff about the bootleg. So I went over there, was binge watching, and was definitely enjoying the content. So we appreciate you for coming on too. We appreciate that.
Appreciate you for having me, man.
So first things first, just to let people get a little more familiar with you, you can tell them what's your name, where you come from, and how you came into this knowledge as well. We'll get into some more things as well. We'll lead up to that.
Okay. Well, people call me UB. You can call me Uriah. I'm from Hickory, North Carolina, which is not far from Charlotte, but kind of close to the mountains. I grew up in basically a small town that was between Charlotte and I would say the mountains of North Carolina. I went to school at A&T, North Carolina A&T at HBCU in Greensboro. After that, after I graduated school, so I graduated school with a degree in history and journalism. While in school, I did some work at the radio station. So I worked at 102 Jams in Greensboro for a little bit. But after graduating school, I basically wanted to try to start my own production company. So for a while, I was doing a lot of music videos for people, like local artists, and I was doing commercials and I was doing little skits, and I was trying to write movies. I did an independent film back in 2007. But my first years out of school, I was mainly I was really just trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life. At that time, even when I had graduated from school with a degree in journalism, my mind was more geared toward like the idea of having a production company where I would just be working on other people's projects and videos, and hopefully one day I'd be able to make a movie. And then I got a couple of opportunities to kind of get my feet wet in the industry, working on some projects. And I realized that just wasn't going to be my lane. I actually even tried to work in news, and that just wasn't my lane either. I had an internship that I just couldn't, it was, I could already see the deception. Even at the time, being a much younger man, not fully understanding the levels of deception.
Give us some things that maybe you noticed without even really being conscious or aware to the point where you are now. What was some of the deceptions that you seen working in the inner workings of that media?
Well, I would say there's a couple of things. So there's in the entertainment world, it wasn't really so much deception that I saw as much as there was a lot of ass kissing that I just couldn't do. There was a lot of stepping and fetching that I already felt was beneath me. I saw the way people were talked to and thought they could talk to me. So I had a couple of clashes in like my first projects because I just wasn't willing to be talked to a certain way. Um, as far as the news goes, I didn't realize it at the time, but you never really know where news is coming from. It's almost like there's a wizard and a crystal ball somewhere, and they decide what is news. And then depending on the, I don't know what you want to call it, the ownership of said station depends on the slant that those stories are going to take on. So I saw that early, not even understanding as much as I do now. Of course, at that time, news was, I'm not going to say far more credible. I would going to say far less partisan, if that makes sense.
The
Um,
believability would have been a lot higher percentage at that time, I guess.
Well, even then, if you call it believability, but even from the standpoint of partisanship, where you didn't necessarily know that this was a Republican station or a Democrat station,
Correct.
as you can see now, what the majority of the media is liberal, Democrat, and then you have like Fox News is the total other end, and then everybody else is pretty much far left leaning, and it's crazy because now, I mean, even the perception of the media has changed. Especially people's perception of Fox News during the whole Black Lives Matter protest versus what the perception is now. Which it's just funny how like the philosophy of media can become cyclical in the way that like a true critical thinker may perceive the information that he's receiving from those channels. And I'm saying all that to say at the time when I was young, I didn't see any of that. You're not, and this is even after I had already read Behold a Pale Horse. You still don't see things. I think you have to experience certain things in order to really truly grasp them. So at the time, I didn't see all of the deception in the media for what it is. I could call it a thin layer of bullshit when it's really way deeper than that. You know what I mean? It seemed superficial to me, but obviously it's much deeper than that. It's
Right.
psychological. And that's even at the radio station, and something that I had a little bit more participation in. I could see the program director at the local stations is the one who actually makes the decision on what songs get played. So, the program director is never someone of the demographic, especially at Black radio stations, from who the music is made for. The program director is almost always, if you go to all of the urban stations right now in America, the program directors, the majority of them are old white men. So you're talking about an old white man, in many cases, an old white Jewish man, deciding what's hot and what gets spins. So, a prime example of this is, and I'll be quick with this story. It was like the time that Music Soul Child dropped way back in the day. For anybody who that's how old I was when I was working at the station.
Shout out to Philly.
Yeah, shout out Philly.
Yeah.
So Music Soul Child had dropped, and the song Just Friends had came out. And the song Just Friends was like the hottest thing ever. Nothing was like it on the radio. Nothing was like Just Friends on the radio. So we had to listen to basically an old white man tell us that it wasn't hot until it was the #1 song in the country. And we finally had to start spinning it. So these are the kind of frustrations that you get into overall in just somebody deciding what's hot in your culture, because we associate our culture with what we hear on the radio. And of course, that's a whole, no, that's deceptive.
And that's what's going on a micro level. You see
Right.
it on a macro level. You see what I'm saying? So
Right.
that's wild. So you was born in North Carolina, small town. Went to North Carolina A&E, A&M, excuse me.
A&T.
A&T, excuse me. So how was your upbringing? I usually ask everyone this: how was your upbringing? Did you hear anything about your heritage? About what lineage you come from, whether it was an
Nah,
African
we
or
didn't,
Native
not
American?
really. We talked about, it's funny, we didn't really, that wasn't, I never had a grandmother who told me that we were Indian or anything like that. I
Right,
mean, I had a great grandmother and I have people who look like Indians in my family, but nobody actually said the word Indian.
right.
I was lucky in a sense that I got to know my great grandmother, I got to know my great great grandfather, and my great grandmother who lived to 100 and something, who was like full in her full capacities at a very old age, and also the generation up under that, my great grandparents. So
Mm,
my great grandmother, my great grandfather, my great great grandmother. These are my maternal ancestors. Okay,
maternal, right?
these are my maternal ancestors. My paternal ancestors.
So no African tribes mentioned, and
No,
no
no, 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 no,
Indian
no.
tribes
Absolutely.
mentioned.
Come on, that's ridiculous.
All right, just making sure
Um, Oh
that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I'm sure somebody can say that, and it could be true, but no, not over here.
Right, right, okay.
Um, on my father's side, so my father's one of 14 children, and my father is the youngest, and my grandparents were really old. So when I was young, my grandparents were already in their 80s. Um, you know, I think I can, at the youngest, I don't know exactly how old they were when I was born, but they were up in age. So I didn't spend much time with them, and I've looked at their family tree. But over there, the generations go back so differently. My dad's family is so big that I never got to meet a great grandparent on that side of the family or a great great grandparent on that side of the family. But I've definitely seen the genealogy records going back and searching my family records. The cool thing is how similar my grandparents lived on my father's side to how my grandparents lived on my mother's side. It's very interesting. Like they all lived a very rural lifestyle. My grandfather on my father's side, he had a lot of land that he ended up buying for, you know, pennies on the acre way back in the day. And so he had a farm and he had some animals and stuff like that. And so my father's family actually still lives on that land unto this day. Um, so my father's got a huge family and it's a few hundred acres. So they got some land out there. On my mother's side, the memories that I have were my great grandmother and my great grandfather. I spent some time with them. My younger brother spent more time with them because when I was going to college, he would spend summers out there. But my great grandmother, Mama Eunice, had the best garden ever. She was one of the best cooks ever. One of the most humble, you know, just God fearing spirits ever. There's, as far as that goes, I come from a very simple family. You know what I mean? Most of my
Right.
family is, agriculture people who lived on the land, things of that nature.
Sounds
I'm a
similar
coun-
to my upbringing, man. Country
yeah, I'm a
boy,
country
born and
boy.
raised.
Like I'm a
Yeah,
country boy through and through. You
right.
know what I mean? And since college, I've lived uh, and spent time in other places and larger cities. But I'm still attracted to the country. You know what I mean? That's
That's
still where
that's the way I am. I'm a country
that's where
boy,
my
but
heart resides. I'm
I,
not gonna ever really love the city like that.
that's why I am. I love. I'm a country boy at heart, brought up, born and raised there my whole life. But I have experienced large cities, and the reason I love certain large cities is because of the conveniency, the dwelling of our people, just the huddle and the atmosphere. We don't get
Right.
that back home in the country. It's like you
Yeah,
said, it's
you're
secluded,
absolutely right.
it's quiet, it's dire, and it's very repetitive. It's repeated.
Yeah, you're right. There are definitely drawbacks. I think about it every time I go out and visit my father's family. It's like, hey, I want to live like this, but do I really want to live like this in the sense that not everything is like, I want to live off my land.
You can
But
see
at the
why some
same
of our
time, I'm
people.
so I'm so urbanized. Like right now I live in Charlotte. But
Mm,
my intent, like, even as we speak, I'm looking for some land I just want an old house in the country or I want some land so I can build a house in the country. You know what
that's
I'm
the
saying?
idea. So if you want to go and get that piece of quiet, it's right there at your disposal at any time. You see
Right.
what I'm saying there? So that's the kind of the way I am. So let's fast forward a little bit. You went to college. You grew up in a pretty seemed like a pretty strict, well educated house. Uh, living off the land. You became infatuated with media, wanting to do productions. How did you get into to the what we would call the underside of what we know as history? Things that they don't tell you. Because I've been watching your Boule series, and shout out to Steve Coakley. Rest in peace to Steve Coakley. And you've been doing something that I've seen not too many people angle in or not be too good at. Steve Coakley was one of the greatest at destroying and explaining, exposing the ways of Boule. And I see you doing it in a way, in an updated version, in a new fashion, which is just as powerful as what the brother Steve Coakley was doing. So how did you get into that? Then we'll work our way into some of the other knowledge you got.
Well, the Boule was probably a little bit further down the line. Interestingly enough, I did have a chance to meet Steve Coakley when I was in college. Even at the time when I met him, I didn't really understand the depth of everything that he was talking about. Like young minds just can't comprehend. And you know, it was cool because we actually exchanged a couple of emails, but I wish I I wish I, you know, knew then what I know now. We always say that, right? I wish I knew then knew how to talk to him and knew what to ask him. You know, the level of wisdom just wasn't there for me to really take advantage of that relationship when I had it. So, because he was good enough to be like, hey brother, if you ever have any questions about any of this, send me an email. And he is a brother who accepted emails and would send you an email back. So even in the spirit of him, like, you know, I feel like in terms of where I'm going, and you know, because I don't really know where I'm going in terms of what I'm going to do next, but I do know that the spirit of Steve Coakley in itself is part of, I feel like, a responsibility. So I'm much obliged to be doing the work on the Boule. And I
I
do.
definitely see his energy in you, brother, and especially where you angle it in. Your production of things is quite attractive too to the eyes, and that's what I know that these up and comer and the modern people in this millennium like to see fast bass. They like the imagery. They like the the the, the voiceovers, the production you put together is beautiful. So since you breaking down the Boule, I've also seen some of your older stuff dealing with the Americas. How did you start it uncovering and looking at all these hidden secrets in history and sciences of the Americas?
I mean, it really came down to reading the Old Testament. You
Mm.
know, and having a like internal will and like an internal love for world geography. So I love nature. I always used to read encyclopedias and wanted to know the longest rivers and the tallest mountains and the biggest lakes and all that. Couple that with the fact that because I haven't really gotten into how I got into the underside of the dark part. In a quick way, it started off with investigating the media. Then it started off investigating the Holocaust. Then it started investigating the identity of a certain group of people. Then I was like, well, crap. Then I started reading old maps. And then I started combining information. I would combine religious information with I would combine scripture with maps with uh history that wasn't scripture, so to speak, old books, old accounts, old sea accounts, trade stories, so to speak. Then things just kind of lined up, especially once you start understanding the Old Testament, not the New Testament, the Old Testament, the Torah especially. Okay, because everything that we need to know, that not only is the land that they're referring to, America, but that we are the people who the book says we are. You just have to. It's something that unless you have investigated for yourself, it's hard to explain. So when I was reading the Old Testament, and they are what they would call during the promise to Abraham, and they start outlining the geography of the
So
promised land.
so before you
I
go in,
started,
before you go in on that, right? I
yeah.
didn't mean to cut your wisdom. So was you always up brought on the Bible, or is that
No, not
something
at all. I
took a
mean, I only
class
use the
to?
Bible because it's the most reliable reference ever. I didn't grow up religious at all. Like, we went to church a couple of times, but it wasn't like, you know, I went to church with my grandmother. Like, when we went, like we stayed with her on weekends, and it was like, well, that was church
Right,
weekend. But for
right.
the
So
most
what I'm
part,
saying
like,
is like, what
we didn't grow up
sparked
like in
your
a.
interest into like looking at this Torah and understanding that it has valid,
Because
accurate
once you read
history?
all the most credible history books in the world, it all goes back to the Old Testament.
Mm,
It's
mm,
the foundation of all the world's history and knowledge.
mm,
So any book that postulates that it has older wisdom than the Torah, most likely is a uh, plagiarization of the Torah. I can rest confirmly in that, because everything that came, the only thing that could possibly be before Torah would be the book of Jasher, which we know in the first chapter of Joshua was already a book and compilation. Um, Other than that, you have to think. If you start looking at the mysticism of other quote unquote older cultures, especially when you talk about in the Eastern world, a lot of people like to point to the Hindus. A lot of people like to point even to the cultures in Central America, like the Mayans. These are all of these cultures can significantly be tied to stories of the Old Testament. So even from the standpoint of, let's say, if we take from the standpoint of, say, comparative linguistics, when people first started talking and talking became an organized thing, the root phonetic syllables in their roots have the oldest roots on earth, and here in America as well. So we actually know that the languages of the Eastern world were brought to the Eastern world. Now we can try to figure out how it was done. We could say, hey, a group of people came over here and this language evolved into something else. But we do
mm.
know.
So let me slow you down right there, because I want to get to some more of your actual accurate information, but this is a beautiful topic right now, so I want to kind of elaborate on this. You're saying that the root of the languages started from a one particular spot and then introduced to another spot.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's pretty much how, I mean, even when they try to use the evolution of humans, we're not going to call it evolution, just the hybridization of humans. In addition to the hybridization of language, that's really essentially what we're talking about.
Mm,
A lot of these things were actually known by some of the most, I would say, popular scholars of maybe centuries ago, where they knew that, say, ancient Greek was rooted in Mayan, um, the ancient Babylonians rooted in Algonquin.
mm.
These are things that, among the academic aristocracy or the academic elite at the time,
And I
especially
kind of,
especially the Freemasonic white elite. These
mm,
were books that were. It's funny because I know they probably never anticipated that we would get our hands on some of their most secret books. But this was common knowledge among the especially the, I would say, the top academic historians of maybe 1820 basically from about 1750 to 1820. This
so
was common knowledge.
so as we breaking this down right now, this is the question. I want you to keep building on this topic, but now is the time frame, is this happening historically ancient time that they telling you, or is this happening in a more recent time than
It
what
is,
they're
I
not
mean,
telling you?
probably 1,000 years more recent.
Mm,
Probably 1,000 years more recent. So
mm.
we're not that far detached from quote unquote biblical times. And a few people, most notably Anatoly Fomenko, who was a guy who was a
The
a
Russian
Russian.
mathematician, yes.
Yeah, he's a mathematician. Although I have my issues with his assertion that Moscow is Jerusalem. Um, based off something very small that was written, I believe, in the book of Malachi. So he seems to overlook the entire geography of the Torah to highlight a very small point in the book of Malachi to try to make the postulation that Moscow is Jerusalem. Nonetheless, the other part of his theory that involves astronomical dating, he seems to have proven that at least through the observation of certain astronomical phenomena, being able to date those through certain cross-reference dates in the past, that they're absolutely, according to him, has been 1,000 years that were basically created out of thin air. So for some, basically we should be in the year, if we're starting at zero, and zero is an arbitrary number because it's based off the life of Christ, and that's it. There's no, the thing about the year zero is the most legitimate way to be able to date something is based off an astronomical phenomenon or even like an earthly event. For example, let's say the flood or a major eclipse or something major that would happen. Then you could date from a certain thing, but you're really talking about an arbitrary date that's based in religious doctrine, so to speak. And you could here's the thing, you could even call the entirety of Torah and the Old Testament, and I don't include the New Testament at all. The Torah and Old Testament, you could call them religious doctrine until you understand it's not a religious book. It's a history book. It's a book of nature. It's also a book of mystery. So for anyone who doesn't truly have the proper amount of wisdom, they're going to read through several things and not understand it. Or they're going, and the book is almost written to make you assume something that isn't true. Even our idea of God as when we think of God, and, I've used the term loosely, God is a title for one, God isn't a name. And when God is first mentioned, when God decides that he wants to create man in our image, God is a multiplicity. He's not a singularity. And we call him he, but we already know that it exists more than once. And then in order for us to gain more wisdom, that's when we have to start digging into older text, just so we can get a good comparative analysis on what exactly we're talking about. So, even from the single definition of saying God and that God meaning one thing is philosophically and foundationally flawed from the first chapter of Genesis. So even the word God doesn't mean what we think it does. It's not one single entity. So, the book is only for the wise, and wisdom is fleeting because you're always learning something. Here's the one thing, I'll never pretend like I know everything, and everything that I know could change tomorrow. So I'm very careful about how I present information. I present especially things that I know to be true in sets of definitive questions. Because every time I learn something and think I know something, that thing that I think I know, I really don't know.
And
I might have a better understanding of something.
And that's the only thing that science can really provide an absolute fact on, is that things is going to change. That's about the only thing that's a fact that won't change in science.
Right. And that's I don't even know what you call that. That is what it is, so to speak.
Yeah,
that is what it is. So that's not observationally, that has no, I can't take that to anywhere and cash that check. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Absolutely. So as you break down some of the ways you started to incorporate some of your history, and now you're looking at this Torah and you're putting it together, is it safe to say that some of these stories are actual real stories? For instance, the Noah story. Is this Noah story maybe explaining how these languages possibly could have spread it from the Americas to other spots?
Well, that's the Tower of Babel story explains the language. The Tower of Babel story before Noah exits the ark. But it's interesting. So yeah, the Tower of Babel story would more explain the language. So the story of Noah is actually two different stories. Once again, it's just something you learn once you really get more insight into what you're reading. So the story of Noah is actually two different stories.
Can you explain
Um,
that for us? Just
well, it's
for
hard to
viewers'
explain right
sake.
now. I had like a whole video explaining it.
Okay.
So let me get into the
That's
language
the
thing
drop.
first, okay? Because this, these are things that, okay, a big issue that comes along when you put out this kind of information is that without the qualifying background, knowledge, or information, there is too much opportunity for somebody to hear something that I say and
And
they'll
become skeptical.
go regurgitate it out of context elsewhere and then lay the misrepresentation at my doorstep. And
Absolutely.
I put too much work.
Absolutely.
I put too much time into my work for that to happen.
No,
So,
absolutely. We
and
appreciate you too. And listen, I want to say we appreciate you for coming on. This is
oh yeah,
actually
no
a
doubt.
deal. And I'm getting a lot of insight of things I didn't even have understanding on that you enlighten me on right now as we speak. So I want to say appreciate you. And shout out to the chat. We got 250 in here already. Let's share this. I need everybody to share this on all your social media outlets. Let's bring in 500 people to this live stream, you guys. I'm going to need y'all to hit the like button. And I'm going to need y'all to drop some fire emojis in the chat to let us know if you're enjoying the bill. Shout out to the brother Ub-Newz. Let's continue.
Okay, so bet we'll talk about this language thing because there's a very interesting thing about language, and especially we can make a few biblical correlations. For us, just to make it simple for us to understand the Tower of Babel. I could simply say, hey, it's located in America, but I had to dig to find that. Okay, so there are no references in the King James, but especially the book of Jasher and the book of Jubilees. Now, in my heart, I trust Jasher more than Jubilees, although I don't think the book of Jubilees is completely false. Just like I don't really trust the New Testament, but I'm not ready to say everything in the New Testament is completely false. As as a true scholar, I still have to read it as though it were true and apply what applies. Now, I've called out a lot of false information in the New Testament. So far, I haven't really found anything that's true, but it doesn't mean that there's no truth there. As far as the language in the Tower of Babel, so we'll just talk about what we know in translations, right? Because, as people, we're just now reading, okay? Now we're reading somebody else's language. Now, even the ancient writings that we are getting are still being transliterated by somebody from ancient language into our language. So the idea that things can get lost in the translation should go without saying at this point. So when you look at the King James version, one of the first things you'll notice about the Tower of Babel and the situation in Babel, if you look at that chapter in Genesis, which I believe is chapter 10, I believe it's chapter 10 and 11. I'm pretty sure it's chapter 10. If you look at those chapters in the Targum and you look at those chapters in the Septuagint, so the Septuagint is the Greek translation, okay? And the Targum is the Aramaic translation. You'll notice that certain information has been alleviated from those texts and how it appears in the King James Version. And of course, once you got your thinking cap on, you understand that these alleviations really do tell the story. Similarly to the difference in the first Genesis of Targum, where the verse says, and God said, let us make man in our images. Well, if you read that in the Targum, you'll see that God said before the 70 angels that ministered before him. So now we've got 70 angels, and we also have a supreme being over that only gets recognized as one being when it gets translated to the King James Version. Similarly, when we're talking about the Tower of Babel, you'll see that in the Septuagint, it says that the world was of one lip and of one race. Okay, we're all good there. So we think. Well, the word race is alleviated from the King James. All right, that's the first thing. Now, previously in the previous chapter, you'll notice that in the division of the nations, and they talk about the sons going into their inherited land. This is prior to the biblical narrative of the tower, and it says that these men, that the sons of Noah were divided into their nations and into their tongues. Now, that was just in the previous chapter. Now, if we're supposing that there's chronological accuracy to the time that these books were written, then just next in chapter 11, the book immediately contradicts itself when it says that the whole earth was of one language. Okay? From these spread the nations. So what is happening here is that we have two narratives of possibly the same story, or we possibly just have contradictory narratives. We when I say contradictory in terms of chronologically, did one happen before the other? Now, if we can see that that's the case, right? If the world was of one lip and we're assuming that the text is true, then we have to start looking at the chronological orders of the previous chapters just to see if certain things line up. So, as I was saying, it's a book of mysteries. So from the time of the Tower of Babel, there are a few things that if you only read the King James, you're not going to get the information there. But if you read the book of Jasher, if you read the Aramaic translations, they are far more descriptive of the same story. And so what you realize is that the book that we've been given alleviates information, but it's not lying. It's written deceptive. And there's so many gaps that need to be filled in that you can't just get it from that book unless you are, I don't know, magic possibly, but you're not going to know certain things without willing to dig the information and do the research, because I know for a fact these are things that, for the last 100 years of Christianity, either our people didn't have access to or they just didn't know about. Now, with that being said, I'm guessing that unless you're really prepared to read the book the way it's supposed to be read, it's just a frustrating task. You can't read 3 chapters a day and think that you're going to understand things. I've read Genesis 1 thousands of times, Genesis 2 thousands of times, and I know that I'm still missing something. You understand what I'm saying? Right. Now, I can talk about these with, I feel like, just as much wisdom as anyone on earth can speak about them, understanding that I still don't know everything that's there.
Correct. Leaving room to grow, leaving room
Absolutely.
to understand, leaving room to learn, connect the dots. So as you break down the Noah story of being 2 different stories, one being, well, you didn't even get to the Noah story.
The Noah story is
the language and how it spread it. Across. So I've seen some of your prior other bills, right? And it kind of, and then the reason I brought up Noah, because one of the stories sounds similar that I heard you talk about in the Atlantis story.
In what sense?
I believe it was Tahuti, Thoth leaving during the flood, and Noah leaving during a particular flood. I don't know. I just thought it was a coincidence that they both happened like that.
Yeah. In terms of anything outside of Torah, I kind of leave it at the footstep of it. If it's not in there and I can't cross-reference it, then I don't deal with it, if that makes sense. It's just like the Atlantis thing. I'm pretty sure America was Atlantis. Right. I can't say for sure, because what is Atlantis? A fictional place that is our home? That was our home? Do I think that an island sunk in the middle of the sea and that was an entire nation? I don't think that was us, nor Atlantis. I think it might be Tyre, but there's a whole different story, which was one of the richest nations on earth at a certain time. And the story of Tyre was, which basically ruled the entire Mediterranean. And those descendants of those people are still there. And that could have been in the location where they thought Atlantis was, because it was off the western coast of Europe, in the same direction of America. So I often find that they amalgamate things to confound true history as well. They like to create composites of fuckery to lead you down a track of nonsense. So, one of those paths of fuckery is like NASA. You have this great abyss of quote unquote pseudo science studying the great unknown of everything, because we exist under the firmament. This has been proven. It can be observationally proven. But once you start accepting your oppressors or Not even, at this point, we can't call them oppressors. You know what I mean? They're deceivers at this point. But
that's right. They deceivers, and they have mastered deception. Obviously, we see it
right, masters of deception. So
master.
with that being known, like the curse that we have is it's a spellbound. You know what I mean? It's something that, and it comes simply from like, hey, don't trust me with everything. I need you to trust yourself. Like, I need you to trust yourself in order to trust what you know and to move forward. I think many people are looking for validation elsewhere. That's why I think what I do is so important, because, I feel like I'm a solid resource of validation for my people who are on this journey. So, I even find myself being propped as a beacon of somebody who you can go to get legitimate information. So if that's the case, then you can't be sidetracked by trying to do too much. You know what I mean? Like, you can't be sidetracked by
And I think
other people. It's like, okay, so other people would take one of my, they're going to take my answer and go to try to find, they're going to like use me to go validate their information. Or in other cases, I have to use somebody else to go validate my information. But at the end of the day, if you trust yourself, and if you trust your, what's the word? Your discernment, your judgment, because nobody's saying, because I tell you something, you have to believe it. Okay. I'm giving you a foundation for you to do your own research. Like, even from the standpoint of my videos, it's like, hey, I want to be a good source, but ultimately I hope that I am inspiring you to go pick up a few books and find out something that I didn't tell you in the video.
Right, and I see a lot of people will do that. I've actually seen people actually using some of your work on some of their channels, and putting their own spin to things. And I've also seen some of your work where you break down Egypt, and kind of equating it to the Americas. How did you come up with that type of information? And I'm pretty sure, like I said, you use the Torah, so I would just want you to elaborate on that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much the Torah. The thing about it is, even a general understanding of history kind of debunks Egypt in its location today, because the Egypt that is like the Egypt that we think that's in Africa is really Greece, and it's really Ptolemaic. It's like it's a post-Babylonian Ptolemaic Greece, if that makes sense. So that's something that people just kind of overlook. All right. So there were essentially, when people think of Egypt, for the most part, they think of Egypt as something that is authentic, when really Egypt is Greece, as our understanding. Because when we're talking about the time in Egypt that we consider, like in our brain, because chronology turns everything into everything else. You see what I'm saying? So Egypt is a place, but we think about a name and we try to associate that with the Torah, so to speak. Well, that area can easily be debunked in terms of geography. Simple as that. People say the Nile is a biblical river, and I'll challenge you to find the Nile as a singular river in scripture. So the Nile never existed as a proper name or a proper noun for a river. It was a tributary creek or stream. Okay, the Nile had seven tributaries. The Nile in Africa has 2 tributaries. The Nile's mouth is the Egyptian Sea, which is the Gulf of Mexico, not the Mediterranean Sea, which in scripture is called the Great Sea. Not only is the Mediterranean not the Great Sea, which the Great Sea is the largest body of water on earth, but also the mouth of the Nile is not on the Great Sea. But things like this you won't understand unless you have a true foundation of geographical knowledge. Mm-hmm. Now we combine that with the fact that, once I started getting these ideas, I started looking at the oldest reputable maps on the earth. And there are several. You can go to David Rumsey Maps right now, and you can start looking at maps, because they have maps from It's a really great source. It's kind of tedious to dig through the maps, but you can look at maps of the Middle East from as early as like 900 that are verified, right? And as far as the archaeological record goes, or the manuscript record goes, whatever they call that. So you can look at maps of the Middle East that were legitimately made in the year 1200, 1400, 1500, 1600. What you'll find out is when you zoom in on certain areas, because these cartographers were they were very detail oriented when they did these maps. So you can just zoom in on several maps in Cairo and you'll see churches and you'll see farms. You'll see all these things. But one thing you won't see are pyramids. Until about the mid 1500s, then you start seeing pyramids on maps, but they're shaped differently. So then once you start going through and digging through all of these old books from all these old cartographers, not only do they have the first pyramids in Egypt began forming in 1565, and they weren't the Great Pyramid of Giza like we see them. They were small, kind of needle-shaped Roman pyramids. So the same cartographers that make these maps, they actually go to the spot. They go to certain spots of interest and they make like, renderings or renditions of the area on the map. So when you find the rendering or the rendition of the area on the map, it looks nothing like the pyramids of Giza. And this is 1565. The only time, it was only until after Napoleon, until about the year 1795, 1798, 1800, it was only after then did you even start to see the pyramids change on the maps. So the pyramids have changed several times on the maps. And if you look at drawings of Cairo, if you look at legitimate maps of Egypt from 1550 and 1450, you won't see any pyramids there. But in that exact same location where the pyramids are supposed to be, you'll see churches and farms. So the cartographer felt the need to put a church or a farm on the map, but the great wonders of the world go missing. Now, I've debunked the pyramids further than that on the Great Pyramids of Shiite video that YouTube literally just won't let me put up at all. They won't even let me put up snippets. So I've debunked that, and we're just talking about the maps. We're not talking about how the pyramids were made, the cubit, the actual quote unquote the astronomical calculations that were used to build the pyramid. Everything, all the technology and all the math, so to speak, that was used to build the pyramids of Giza had been well used over here in the Americas and building things that were that required much more manpower to build. Similar to the Cahokia Mounds. The Cahokia Mounds and other mounds, not just Cahokia, they're built to the exact same astronomical specifications as the Great Pyramid. But we don't look at those, that all of that history has been not only torn down, but stricken from the record. We can't even consider that in the narrative of the world. This, of course, is by design. But when you're talking about the pyramids in Egypt, well, we have modern stone cutting techniques. We know for a fact that they were using concrete, which when I say concrete, they were using sand to create a geopolymer that was formed to make these, the smoothest blocks of pyramid. So we've always been told that they were just random rocks and they were floated up the Nile. They gave you this big, ridiculous story about
right. That's what they say. They say that
right.
they floated them from the Delta up the Nile.
Yeah, they didn't do any of that.
Thousands
They
of
didn't do
pound
any of that
stones.
shit. Right. They absolutely didn't do any of that. And it was most likely made. I would say it was most likely made by some Europeans. My money's on the French in the late 1790s during their quote unquote discovery of Egypt. The same Napoleon army that was supposedly in Egypt, right? Meanwhile, the French, so Napoleon's in Egypt, but he ends up with owning half of the United States and the Louisiana Purchase without a French military. So during the exact same time that Napoleon was supposedly conquering Egypt, French all of a sudden has conquered Louisiana. But accordingly, Napoleon never stepped foot on American soil. So these are all, you see what I mean? So the deception goes hella deep.
Yeah,
And there's so much more there that, just off the top of my head kind of escapes me, but you get the point.
all right, no, you definitely went in on that, and so you kind of brought up the Americas and how this science of astronomical alignments was already being used. So I want to ask you this question: Africa's highlighted with Egypt and the Zulu and Nubia and all these nations. What would you highlight in America, meaning structural wise, civilization, and maybe even nations wise?
What do you mean? What would I highlight?
Yeah, let's like if somebody want to say, well, what are some of the great monuments in America, and what are some of the great nations in America? Could you highlight that? Maybe using the
Well,
Torah
I
as
mean,
reference, or
yeah, I was gonna say I would definitely use the Torah. See, not just the Torah in general, but a lot of the technology that we think is new today is like, nothing's really new under the sun.
fact.
Only our perception, right? So I mean, here's the problem is that we don't really know exactly what it looked like. We can only imagine. And I would start by imagining something far greater than what you initially think. Okay. So, we had a great nation. We built great, what do you want to call them? Great structures. You're talking about, we made the arch. We had great, beautiful structures. We had our own versions of, I would call it like man and nature coming together, because our cities were built from earth. Okay. We were a much more natural people, even going all the way down. But when you're talking about the civilizations that are named in the annals of history, that's the problem. We could go to the quote unquote oldest civilizations on the continent. They say the Norte Chico civilization's like the oldest civilization in the Americas, right? Well, nothing's left from it, right? Literally nothing's left from it. But here's what we know. See, what you have to do is you kind of have to like use deductive reasoning to try to figure out history. Okay. It's like, oh, nothing's left. And they say these people had no pottery or no art, right? Nor are they genetically linked to any of the quote unquote falsely attributed indigenous tribes of that area in South America. Okay. Because those indigenous tribes are just kind of like they're new arrivals over the last few hundred years. Okay. But if you just take that area, well, we know that they had geometry, they built huge structures and pyramids and everything. Now, we know this for a fact because the civilization is imprinted in the earth, my brother. Okay. And they say this is the oldest in just the Americas. Now, that's down in South America. The only difference is what we're not taking into account is that this predates ancient Egypt, but we can already see that same technology being used there. But we don't know anything about those people, just like we don't really know anything about the quote unquote Mayans or Aztec or the Mississippian culture or the Adena culture. All of these, all of the peoples, all of the indigenous peoples have been rebranded into their acceptable terms through the eyes of the deceiver, so to speak. So what I could say to that is, yeah, you could read the Torah and understand that all of these great civilizations were here on the continent, right? But the continent has changed over time. I know for a fact that some sort of catastrophe has hidden a lot of history. We know for a fact, just like, okay, so you take Teotihuacan in Mexico, where the entire Mexico, okay, so it was one of the greatest cities that we know of before it got taken down by the conquistadors. It was a city it was millions of people in multiple islands. It was bigger than London. It had canals. You know what I'm saying? It had pyramids and you know what I'm saying? It was out on an open lake. It had canals. It was one of the most probably well-planned cities of antiquity, but it doesn't even get mentioned among the wonders of the world. Meanwhile, Mexico City is built on top of that. You see what I'm saying?
Fact.
So this city of pyramids and that are on set, the conquistadors got several pictures of Teotihuacan during the takeover. They got plenty of pictures, right? But what does Mexico City look like today? Just a regular city. So I would say using that as a foundation, understanding that something far greater was here before they came, and they didn't move the earth. Okay. They didn't move the earth. things happened naturally. There was some major catastrophe that really most likely changed the landscape of the earth. And we know that is, I mean, the landscape of the earth is, consistently changing. And getting back to that, I'll just kind of move to another subject since we're talking about it. Take California, for example. California would be an open sea and an island if it weren't for the construction of over 1,000 dams. Okay. Which means that all of those maps from the 1500s and 1600s that have the sea right between California and Nevada, where California is an island, that sea is called the Red Sea on over 100 maps. Why did they call it the Red Sea? I have no idea. And I don't even use that as a legitimate, argument to say that, America's is Egypt. I just think it's a huge coincidence.
You said California did what now?
On California used to be an island, and there's plenty of maps from the 1600s and possibly 1700s, at least from the 1600s going up into 1700 that show California as a map. They've got maps from all types of cartographers that show California as an island. And if you look, just in right there where California is, the Red Sea is right there. So okay, so you got the map there. So right there where you're the bottom of the cursor is Red Sea. And if you zoom out, you'll notice here that the
let's see if we can find
but no, go back to that map. Go back because I need you to see this. This is foundational. So the more interesting thing about this map is not that California is an island, is that the Pacific Ocean is called the South Sea. Okay. So you see that South Sea down there? Why would the Pacific Ocean be called the South Sea? The Pacific Ocean is synonymous with West. So, the mind fuckery is on several different levels, my brother. And just to let you know, man, I'm going to have to get out of here in about 10 minutes, just to let you know. All right?
No, you good. I already know. We encroaching
yes, sir.
right now. So, yeah, perfect. So yeah, the South Sea. So how do you equate this with Torah text?
Well, there's a couple of things.
And hold on. So if this is South,
right, then the map is flipped.
Yeah.
Well, when you get back to root Hebrew, you learn things that even our understanding. So if you take the Torah, you understand that the ancient Hebrews used to orientate their maps east, which means east was up. But see, east was relative to where you were traveling. East wasn't what we would call a solid direction, so to speak. East pointed somewhere, and everywhere you went was relative to east.
Yeah, for instance, like you said, you from North Carolina, right?
Right.
So you know how the elevation is in the Smokies, right?
Right.
So for instance, if we was to take off and go north towards Chicago or Detroit, we're technically going down in elevation wise, but in direction we're going north.
Right. And then some people would say that north could be east or that north could be west. It's the orientation and direction is very compelling from how the ancients reconciled their travels. And because one of the major points that a lot of people miss is that different people oriented their maps differently based on where their lands were in relative to the sunrise. So in Egypt, south was east. And in Babylonia, what was it? North was east? Or east was north? One of the two. But I'm saying all that to say,
and when they said upper, they really meant the most southern region, and when they say lower, they meant the most northern region.
Right. It's based off exactly. It's based off elevation because up and down. Right. Orientation. Exactly. It's kind of like when Abraham went down into Egypt. Okay, he didn't go south into Egypt. Possibly he did, but all we know is he went down. And all that implies is that he went to a lower elevation.
Right. And like you mentioned in the text, when they mention of going up to temples, they always mention going up to a temple. They never say going down to a temple. It's always mention of going up to a temple in the historic Torah text. So, man, I don't want to hold you too long. I know you used to say you only got 2 minutes, 10 minutes. So I do want to leave 5 minutes to the chat to ask. Shoot any questions in the chat. Shoot them on the chat, and I will put them on the screen, and we can see if we can get your questions answered before the brother UB gets out of here. And I appreciate you for coming on, brother.
No
Once
doubt.
again, this was a fire build. I hope y'all enjoyed this. Make sure y'all hit the like button, drop some fire emojis in the chat, and shoot your questions, you guys. Shoot your questions. So, anybody want to shoot some questions? Anybody? We wait on. Let's see who we got. Do we got questions in here? How can I buy some? Is that a question? Let me see. How can I buy the Boule series? What you say? That went kind of fast. How can I buy the Boule series? Ub-Newz. That was a question from someone in the chat.
Well, I'm not really selling it right now. I mean, I'm still in production. So the easiest thing to do would be just to donate $1 each time the video drops. I don't ask for much because I know it's hard times out here. You know what I mean?
Hey,
Understanding.
if you don't mind putting your cash out in the
No, I ain't tripping. I ain't tripping. If they go to my page, they can find it. You know what I mean? All I'm saying that to say I appreciate everybody, but my people look out for me, so I'm able to say, hey, bro, it only
Absolutely.
just send me $1, bro. You know what I'm saying? Because other people are gonna send $10. Some people are gonna send 20. Some people might even send me a 50 spot. Some people have even sent more. But the reason those people are the reason why you only have to pay $1. You know what I'm saying? Because my people look out for me. So, hey, it's all love here.
That's what it's about.
It's a labor of love. You know what I'm saying?
Facts.
I think,
Facts.
and you know what's crazy, man. I'm glad that you said this. A thing, and I hate to go here, but a thing that annoys me is people who really don't respect my time or understand the amount of work that it takes to make these videos. And it's like it's like if you are going to send me a 15-page email and ask me a million questions, at least have watched one of my videos first. Okay? Don't send me a 15-page email if you've never sent me $1. What kind of disrespect for my time do you have? And it's funny, the people who always look out, they understand that and they don't ever ask for anything. It's funny. It's like, man, the people who show me the most love, bro, you can send me an email anytime. You can call me and ask me a question. But bro, you ain't even watched a video, much less sent me $1. And I got to take an hour to read your email and 6 days to reply. Come on now. You playing with me. You playing with my time, and you're disrespecting the amount of work it takes for me to do this.
Yeah, we gotta respect it because I know how much time it goes in to making these videos and this content. So yeah, man, we definitely gotta really support and understand how much work and time goes in. Just time alone in research.
And it's a labor of love, man. I do this because I love, I love my people, number one. I love my people, number one. I want my people to be able to count on me. You know what I'm saying? I love God for what God, the Most High, that I can't even articulate God. Okay? I can't articulate where I find the will and the strength to be able to. It don't require strength. It just requires strength to be able to look at a really tedious book that's not written for us and to be able to stare at for like 6 hours and like really, really dig into it. That's the tedium. The tedium is like being able to work on a video that would normally drive people crazy. I put a video together and, I put maybe 2 videos together in a month that for most filmmakers on any level, they couldn't put together in 2 months. You know what I'm saying? Like I work fast. I work very fast and I work effectively. And I'm mostly able to do that because there's something that was inside of me that allows me to just keep working and not stick my head up. It allows me to enjoy work. Well, most people want to go hang out and do this and do that. Like my hanging out is doing work.
That's usually what I'm doing too, man. I've dedicated my time and thousands of hours to research and to implement and giving back to
Right.
the community, not because I get paid for it, because I love to do it. My channel's not even monetized, so
Right. Mine neither. Mine neither.
yeah, they never monetize mine, man.
I can't monetize nothing anyway because every one of my videos is threatened to get taken off. They all get copyright hits. Mainly not because of like anything real. It's like if my brother uses a 2-second sample, they'll go find whoever my brother got that sample from. And so I just, I don't even monetize the channel. It's not worth it.
Yeah,
It's not worth it. You can get a million, you might get 1 million views on a video. You only gonna get like $150.
that's nothing, man.
Yeah, I see how they play with, especially when they play with numbers and the algorithm and things of that nature. But I know what the payout is on certain on even on a big video, unless you're doing 1 million or 2 million views in 24 hours, that's not no real money.
Yeah, if you do, yeah. You got to do it within It's about bringing in that many amount of views in a small window,
in a small amount of time.
Algorithm chart, right? Yeah. So yeah, you're right, man. Everything's so
on my last channel, I didn't even touch my money. I didn't touch 2 channels ago. I monetized, and I didn't even touch my money. And I've had a couple of good videos. I mean, like the most I ever made in a month was like $125.
That's crazy.
And that was probably off. There's probably off like close to 500,000 views. You know what I'm saying?
That's crazy. Yeah, man. That's why I say it's up to us to support the real and the ones that's really putting their time in and they work. And we really appreciate you, man. We really do. We appreciate you for your time. I know you got to go.
Did anybody get any more? Did anybody get a question in there?
I didn't see any questions in the chat. I really did. Let me look through and skim through one more time before we get out of here. Let me skim through.
I ain't tripping.
One person said, "What is your nationality or what is your race?"
My race.
Yeah,
I'm an indigenous American.
Indigenous American, right? Proud American. I love that. We got to stand on that title. I also identify as American, proud and Aboriginal American, Indigenous, Aboriginal, one and the same, synonymous. I believe that's it. Hold on.
The race of my people were here.
One question from Ancient Soul. They said, "Where in the Torah can you find California?"
Cedars of Lebanon. Easy enough.
Yeah,
that goes without explaining.
A couple people are wanting to support you, so if you don't mind putting your Cash App tag in the private chat, and I'll post it in the chat right now for the viewers, and whomever want to support can be gladly to support this brother for his time and his work. Brothers like you need to be on larger platforms, definitely breaking down some of this, because a lot of our people are already looking at the Bible but don't know what they're looking at. So with this,
so getting back to, and not to cut you off, but one of the easiest ways to realize that.
Shit, he cut off. Let's see if we can get him back on here. Hey man, we got 189 in here, man. Hit that like button. UB just stepped off. Let's see if we can get him back on here before he gotta go. Support the channel, man. If anybody want to donate, the link is on the screen, taking across. Make sure y'all support the channel, man. Run these likes up. Can we get the likes up? I will appreciate it if we can get these likes up. Can we get the likes up, you guys? So let's get it, man. Shout out to the brother Ub-Newz, man. This was a fire bill. All right, we got the brother back in here, y'all.
I don't know what happened.
I don't know. You cut off in the middle. You explained it. I'm like,
the Cedars of Lebanon were used to construct the Temple of Solomon. And the Cedars of Lebanon are the most infamous cedars and forests, not just in scripture, but in the world unto this day. And they border the Great Sea, not the Mediterranean Sea. So that's for if you needed to find California in scripture. It's a very easy way to do it.
Oh, that's dope. That's dope. I never even thought about it that way.
The cedars of Lebanon, I kind of want you to, people to do. The cedars of Lebanon are the redwood forest. You can start there. You can understand that the Mediterranean Sea in scripture is written as the Great Sea, and the Great Sea is the largest body of water on earth, which means it can't be the Mediterranean Sea right there. Because not only do the tallest trees on earth have to be over there in Lebanon, which they aren't, then they would have to be directly adjacent from the largest body of water on earth. Okay.
All right, so did that answer your question, the brother, for the brother or sister to ask about California? I believe that was it on the questions. We appreciate you for coming through, brother. Maybe we can get you back some other time, man, and break
no
down
doubt, bro.
And get the talking in some more of your history as well. We could keep going on and on forever, but we appreciate your time and enjoy the rest of your day, brother. And like I said, once again, we appreciate your work.
I appreciate you, brother, man. Keep doing the thing. I appreciate your work as well, man. And yeah, definitely, man. We'll definitely have to do this again, man. Salute to everybody supporting, man. Drop some love for Aboriginal Power as well. If you were going to donate to me, you can donate to that brother. Whatever you're going to donate to me, you can donate to him. However you want to do it. I just appreciate that we got some people in here doing this work, man. And it's all love, man. Shalom to everything, man. Shalom to y'all guys. I can't see people in the chat, but he told me people are there. So just
if you go to your phone, it should say something that says chat on your phone, or
yeah. Well, I put something in the chat, but that's how I did something, and that's how I ended up getting kicked out last time. So I went to chat and I put something in, and then that you didn't see me no more.
So, okay, you did put something in a private chat. Let me put that.
Yeah, the next thing you know, I was gone. So I was like, I don't know what happened.
All right, and that's in the. So you was in a private chat. They got a regular chat, so you should be able to see a chat. But when I'm gonna send you the video later on to your cell phone, so maybe you can go and check the replay, and you can check the live feed out as well. So this is his cash up on the screen, you guys. So support the brother. I appreciate y'all. I'm gonna play a little song while we get ready to generate out and let y'all support. I appreciate y'all, brother Ub-Newz. Once again, we appreciate you. Enjoy the rest of your day, brother.
Peace, peace.
Peace.
Yeah. I ain't here to judge, I just want you to walk with me. So miss me with all envy, cause shit could get dark quickly. I'm swimming with the sharks, they wishing that jaws get me. What I speak, it shall exist, that's the spirit of God in me. Listen, I'm trying to tell them that it's deeper than rap. I'm trying to bring them back, the ones that fell deep in the trap. See, they feed you the bullshit, but them be keeping the facts. Spreading white lies by trying to tell our people they black. I know my lineage, I spit the truth, and in that booth you sit me in. Connected to the higher power, I know why it sent me here. To open eyes and show that hope it lies within your mind. Cause this globe is ours, so let's take over now. You know it's time, cause they control the blind. Lost so they can't see what's going down. Yeah, you might could take the gold, but you can't break the golden child. All my kings worldwide, I know that they gon' hold it down. Come for eyes and they firing straight out the holster. And I've been having premonitions. See, it's time for us to stand up and unite. You feel me? Because a lot of people say that you gotta see it to believe it, you feel me? But from my perspective, I look at it as sometimes we gotta believe it to see it. Start with you feel me? Feel this. I've been having premonitions of my niggas winning. Building up the projects free from penitentiary. And we all unified, so ain't no senseless killings. I'm glad we finally realized that we ain't really different. We finally get that we in fact all kings, so we subtract all beef. We growing crops in every block, look like Black Wall Street. And we investing in these stocks so we can stack our cream. And we ready for war if you try and snatch our dreams. Revolution, we abide by our principles, making changes. Street niggas turn scholars. Knowledge is really gangster. We protectors and providers. We gotta uplift the nation for our queens. We ride if you try to put them in danger. Yeah, beneath the chaos, know your soul is pure. All that greatness you got within was never shown before. Wherever you take your crown, that's your home for sure. So why be for
over the block when the world is yours, indigenous.
At one point, I was ignorant and lost, but like you gotta know yourself before you do anything, before you can make a record, before you can have an opinion. You gotta know yourself. So we don't got no means to go get it. These niggas got millions of dollars, institutions set up, like the LAPD, like the Fed, like the FBI. All this is their army, and their army make it to where you can inflict your will. Meaning if a motherfucker don't want to do it from an agreement, you can come take it. If a nigga don't want to agree and do it verbally, well, you got an army to come enforce your will. So that's what we lack. You know what I mean? We don't have no army that's gonna come protect our natural resources because our